Welcome to The Conversation with your host, Andrew Brunet.
Welcome to The Conversation presented by The Lantern. I'm your host, Andrew Brunet, and today we have a very special guest with us. Welcome our friend Brittany Farr to the program. First of all, congratulations on being reelected as Clover Town Councilwoman. Share with us what emotions went through your mind when you received the results that you won the election.
Hey, Andrew, thank you so much for having me today. It's been a journey, I'll say. It's kind of, after the election, it's sort of like a giant exhale because you go through this process of filing and campaigning, and, you know, I'm one of those people that I'm not the quote unquote shaking hands and kissing babies kind of person. So it's a little, outside of my box to get out there and be as social as you have to be for a position like this. When I first ran 2 years ago, it was like one of the biggest decisions I think I've ever made, and it was such a daunting decision, but it was like a gut thing where I kept getting this feeling, that I needed to do something. I needed to, instead of just talk about it, be about it kind of a thing. And so I almost actually didn't refile for this term. I got into a place where I'm doing so many things to fight, tyrannical things across the state and the nation. And also, I homeschool my children. So I felt like I was being pulled in a bunch of directions. But ultimately it was sort of an 11th hour decision. I literally waited until there was 1 hour left to file, and I finally was just like, all right, you're either going to do it or you're not. And I just loaded my kids up, and in the car we went to York. When we got the results from the election, I was preparing myself for either way. I was like, listen up, God, this is in your hands completely. I'm not even in this equation until the race is over. I was pleasantly surprised to see that I got over 150 more votes this time than I did last time. So it was very reassuring that, people see me and hear me and understand what I'm about. And cause it's a lonely road sometimes. So there was some definite relief, and glad for the race part to be over. And I look forward to another 4 years. It's going to be hard. This is never easy. You lose a lot of sleep. But I just look forward to it. I'm excited to see what the next 4 years holds.
So what are some of the goals and missions that you hope to achieve while in this position?
That's a loaded question. I'm sure you get a lot of fluffy answers to this sometimes, but for me, ever since I really started getting involved in politics, it's always been about elections and the process of elections. I've gone down a lot of quote unquote rabbit holes, and I've done a ton of research and helped to, in a lot of election integrity and America First effort things. For me, I would love to see the municipalities pull away from the county board of elections and actually run their own elections on paper ballots, hand counts, and have that control in our own municipality. It's a pretty general consensus too for the folks that are on council now and the new ones coming in, that economic development in the form of business and industry and stabilizing growth to suit our needs, and not just selling out to the highest bidder or developer and relying solely on the sale of water meters to fund projects. But I'd say, most of all, I wish to really inspire others to get involved, especially in their local government, and to really pay attention to who and what they're voting for, what's happening, or the potential ramifications of what is coming down the pipeline. Just in Clover, we have so many boards open with seats available right now, and today is the deadline to apply for those positions, because we have to, as council, we have to vote on those to appoint people to those boards. We have the Board of Zoning Appeals and Planning Commission and a housing authority, the architectural review board, economic development. There's probably one or two others that I'm forgetting about, but they all have seats, that we need to fill, and it needs to, people need to be willing to step up, and if they want certain change, then they kind of need to be part of the direction of that change. That is what I would like for people mostly to start doing, is get involved. Don't wait until you have to be reactive. Be proactive.
So I hear Clover has a 5-year revitalization plan. First, explain to us what the vision of this plan actually is.
So it's actually a 3-year plan if you mean the Main Street program of South Carolina.
Right.
Yeah. So we have already formed a steering committee, and a lot of this stuff had already taken place prior to my joining council 2 years ago. The wheels were already in motion for it. But since I've been on council, we have formed a steering committee and hired Alicia Griffith as our Main Street director. And primarily, she's been doing a lot of training through MASC and working to streamline the process of bringing business into Clover. I think mainly our goal is just to revitalize our downtown and create and attract retail opportunities and experiences for the community for economic vitality. I'd say we'd like to attract people to our downtown area from surrounding areas as well. It's not, just for Clover. I mean, obviously our town limit is our main priority, but we want people to visit and feel welcome and want to spend their time and their money with what we have to offer in town. Our facade grant is really doing better than it has in the past, so much so that just last month, the steering committee had pretty much come to us with an ask for an additional $21,000 towards our facade grant budget line item, and we approved that. And since last month, most of that money has already been allocated to businesses. So that's a really good, strong thing for us as well.
So what new businesses have you seen open? Are there any improvements that you think could be brought to downtown to make it better?
I think, just in the last 6 months, for example, we've seen the purchase of several of our historic buildings by a local businessman and Clover native. He has secured several new tenants and is showing us very promising plans for new restaurants, mixed use and residential shops. So far, just in the last, I'd say, 3 to 6 months, we have done ribbon cuttings for a skateboard shop, a beauty salon, a farm-to-table restaurant. A lot of people have probably heard of that one. That one is Clover Harvest. The beauty salon, it was called No Limits Hair Salon, I believe. And the skateboard shop's name is Textile Skate. But also, we've gotten a photography studio in one of our storefronts. And, of course, now, I'm sure you heard about it, York County opened its first tattoo parlor since the ordinances and stuff for the county have changed in the last year. And they decided to open right here in Clover. It was really awesome. That's just to name a few. There's a few more businesses that are set to open up here in the next, I'd say before the end of the year. Hopefully. I know one of them for sure is a coffee shop, and then there's another kind of like a cafe style restaurant that's opening up as well. So we have a lot to be thankful for, that, in this kind of economy we're still opening businesses and people are feeling encouraged to do so, and there's opportunity to do so. And I think it's providing a lot more diverse set of things to do right here in town versus, scooting over to the neighboring towns and cities to find things to do. So it's very exciting. I pray for these businesses. I pray for the owners, and I pray that they're supported and loved and accepted in the town of Clover, because everyone's going to have a different flavor.
So what are some of your favorite places to shop and eat?
To eat, we love going to Courtney's Barbecue. and Clover Harvest, and between South Main and Eagles Nest, we kind of frequent those 4 establishments the most, I would say. I love some of the shops that are in town. Southern Willow is one of my favorite. They have some beautiful gifts in there. And Amazing Grace is another little gift shop area too. And then we have a clothing retail store, and Puddin's One Stop Shop. She has all kinds of gifts and clothing, and it's just really cool to see, especially on the southern side of town. It's nice to see that there's more businesses coming in there.
So, in your own words, how do you define the success of a community?
My own words, community, just being neighborly. I mean, it doesn't take much to show you care, to show that you support someone's effort, showing gratitude and a willingness to be helpful, no matter who you're dealing with. I feel like everyone, it's really cliche to say, but you can't know someone's story until you've walked a mile in their shoes. But everyone has something that they're going through. And I think just taking a moment to think that a gesture of kindness can go a long way in someone's day. Extending a hand for help. It's just things like that. It's that village. It takes a village mentality. And you can support a business or a friend in any way that doesn't cost you $1. Share their business on social media. Give them a like. Give them a comment to boost their algorithms. All those things give them more visibility for people that can afford to, spend their money in addition to time. To me, that's what community is. It's not looking for what someone, I'm trying to think of how I want to word this. You don't have to look at all the things that make us different. Sometimes you got to look at it and see what each other has in common and build upon that, if that makes sense.
So what can be done to bring the people together rather than divide?
I think communication. We live in such a polarized environment and time where everyone is so quick to get offended instead of really trying to listen to hear versus listening to respond. I feel like if we truly looked at people's intentions behind the things that they do and say, it would tell us a whole lot more about who that person is and how to interact with them better.
So how do you plan to involve the citizens of Clover in the decision-making process?
Honestly, I can plan to involve people all day long, but the choice is truly up to them. I can't force them to be involved. All I can do is encourage and continue to post and continue to talk and that's really all I can do is just extend that olive branch and say, hey, look, I'm here. Like if there's an issue, I can't fix or address something I don't know. So if people are only willing to, complain, because you see this on social media so much and everybody, there's not one person who isn't guilty of this. It's that whole keyboard warrior mentality, like, hey, let's get offline here and actually have a conversation, whether that be on the phone or if someone needs to meet me for coffee to talk about something, I will figure out a way to make it happen. But it's just communication. Citizens have to be willing to communicate their desires and their grievances in person and not just not just when they're angry. Like I wish that they would be quick to, and I'm guilty of this myself. I wish they would be quicker to thank your elected officials for what they do right, not just kicking them down when you're mad at them or when something didn't necessarily go your way, because it's a job that is very hard, it's taxing, and I'm not going to speak for every, elected official. I wish I could snap my fingers and fix all the problems for everybody. There's just not enough hours in the day, but I want people to know that I do hear their problems and I see their problems and I research their problems, and if I don't know an answer, I'll look for it.
So do you have any political ambitions besides city council?
I get asked this question a lot, actually. It's funny. There was my daughter's best friend's mother texted me on election day and said that her daughter said that she couldn't wait for Jovi's mom to be president. And that's just in her simple little mind, thinking that was what was going on in the election in Clover. But it tickled my fancy, because I was like, oh, honey, that's probably not in my sights ever. But I've had people suggest that I run for county, or, hey, I'll see you at the state house one day. And it may be. I'm not going to say yes or no. If God puts that on my heart, and he seems to be putting stuff on my heart a whole lot more lately, I'll wait for that guidance and that nudge from God.
So what motivates you to continue on in politics?
My children and, their future children and just future generations. Honestly, I sit back and I look at the childhood that I had and the childhood that my family had, and I'm looking at my kids and thinking, man, they have no idea how good it was. And even as good as it was when I was a kid, there were still so many problems that, we couldn't have possibly understood until you can't connect dots forward. You can only connect them backwards. And so that's just where my brain goes. I wanted to show my children that, you can't just sit back and complain about stuff when you don't like what you see going in, on in your government. So I wanted to be a role model for them and say, you know what, this is what you have to do. You have to put yourself out there and be willing to get dragged through the mud a little bit, in order to make a difference.
So before you became a council lady, how were you volunteering and serving the community, and in what capacity?
Well, before I became a council lady person, however you want to address that, I actually lived in the county. It wasn't until maybe a year of living in town again before I really started entertaining it. I had just, like, pre-COVID and 2020 nightmare and all of that, I just closed my salon down. I had a salon in Gastonia, North Carolina, and I had that for almost 4 years, or right at 4 years. And I closed that in 2019, not because I wasn't successful. It was just too much going on. I had that. I had 3 children, that were 5 and under. And, I just kind of needed a break. So, when COVID and everything started, and I just started, seeing all these mandates and this tyrannical behavior and things like that, and I was so frustrated with parental rights. It felt like parents it felt like they had no right, like they couldn't stand up for their kids, and you got to mask them, and you got to do this and this and this and this. And I started my journey, I guess, pushing back on school districts, not just my own here in Clover, but, helping research and do things with other school districts, across the state. And, that ultimately led me to decide to homeschool my own children. And I finally was like, oh, we have an election coming up. So I was praying about it. And I just decided, shoot, let's go. Put my name in the hat for a seat I was filling a seat, that had to be vacated because someone had to leave their seat. But when I won, it was just like, oh gosh, kind of like drinking from a fire hydrant. There's just so much information coming at you, and I was sworn in immediately instead of in January. But even after that, some friends of mine approached me about being on a lawsuit in January of 2021, and I thought about that for about a day. They asked me if I wanted to join it, and there was a little bit of hesitation in my gut at first that I would damage myself as an elected official or maybe not get reelected. And ultimately I decided, you know what, this is bigger than that. And if this suit goes through and we're successful with it, that could change everything for everyone in South Carolina. And I was willing to risk it. So it was a pro se suit, which means, we didn't use attorneys. We wrote the suit ourselves. We filed everything ourselves. It was a long and arduous process, and it ended up ending in a motion to dismiss, and they kicked us out based on standing. So our own court system here in South Carolina basically told us that we didn't have a right to sue. We didn't have a leg to stand on, and so it was very disappointing, and it really showed what our judicial system is like here in South Carolina. And I don't care what anybody says, it's not good down here. There's a lot of reform that needs to take place. So that's just some of the things that I've done. I've helped to write letters to legislators, not just here in South Carolina, but, all over the country. I have, been part of a lot of grassroots efforts to fight election fraud and really just kind of hold people's feet to the fire in our government. And if I don't, who's going to? I have to be part of one of the people that stands up as a lesser magistrate.
Right. So on a scale from A to F, how would you assess overall elective leadership in York County, and why?
That's a loaded question. I will leave it at this. Perhaps the people in this county have not been heard, or maybe they've been ignored, but if you just do a quick search of some of the local Facebook pages and just see the comments that people have, I would say it's 50-50. That's where I'll leave that. There's the people around here, I feel like, have been very loud about how they feel about local government.
So why do you believe Clover does not receive news coverage like Rock Hill does in York County?
I don't necessarily feel like Clover doesn't get that much coverage. I know Sam Green, she was our former events coordinator. She just took a new position elsewhere. But she was on, I'm pretty sure monthly on, WRHI with Manning Kimmel. I know our town administrator, Allison Harvey, she has done multiple, interviews with him. I've seen articles from the Herald. Every area, every town or municipality, they're going to have some positive things and some negative things. I can't honestly say that I don't feel like we've gotten, fair amount of coverage. Yeah.
So
I don't feel like it's been too unfair. Sorry.
So in your words, what does it mean to have the Lantern News and Media organization as a part of your community and a member of the Chamber of Commerce?
Honestly, I wasn't aware that the Lantern had become a member of our chamber. So I actually think that that's pretty cool. That shows that they're invested in our community as well, and gives them more opportunity to truly know what's going on in our community versus speculation. I think it's a great thing.
So are there any businesses that you would like to see open or relocate in Clover?
I would love to see more things that are geared towards youth. We've got not programs. We've got playgrounds, we've got parks, but there's not a whole lot for like a preteen or teen to kind of do around town. I do believe, I'm like 99.99% sure that we're also getting an arcade for in downtown. So I think that that's going to be a great thing, especially give kids something to do. I would say that maybe that, and then maybe a really, really, really nice sit down restaurant. We just got Clover Harvest, and that has added a huge like date night opportunity for couples to really actually have access to that here in town, because sometimes it's hard to schedule, babysitters and all those things, to have to drive to Charlotte or to Rock Hill or Gastonia for a date night. So I think that would be a really awesome opportunity too.
So what do you feel is an important need for the Clover community in terms like infrastructure, a downtown revamp of Main Street, telecommunication, or technology?
I'll say, well, we have recently received various grants from the state for water sewer updates and projects. We were approved for let me get this correct. It was the PARD grant, that is the Park and Recreation Develop Fund, which is state funded. It's not a competitive grant program really. It's reimbursable for like eligible local governments for special purpose districts and things like that. We received some money for that, for some updates at some of our one of our parks bathrooms. We received some funding to go towards our streetscaping, our police training facility, which is behind our town hall. So, and that is also doesn't take into consideration the ARPA funds, which, those funds have been received, and we've put those in, accounts that can, actually grow and earn a little bit more money for us to have more funding to do some of the projects that we discussed and gotten feedback from the community on for those kinds of projects. As far as telecommunication and technology, I would really, and I've been pushing for this for a while, I would really love to see our town hall, especially for our meetings, have recorded and archived tapes of our meetings and things like that. Not just for, the public and compliance on things, but even for myself, because sometimes I'm in those meetings, and sometimes I'd love to be able to go back and say, I need to revisit this. I want to listen to this a little bit more and jog my memory, because it's impossible to sit there and retain every little bit of detail from those meetings. So it would be nice to have that to refer back to. Technology is kind of one of those things where it's such a great tool, but it really has potential to throw upheaval in things too, because it removes humans out of the equation. If you automate everything, who actually gets to do those jobs anymore? You know what I'm saying? So I think technology and telecommunication things we've got to tread lightly, make sure that there's good intention behind it.
So what do you say is the biggest reason that holds back the Clover community from excelling in terms of looking at other communities within York County like Fort Mill and Rock Hill?
Well, we're in a very unique position in that first let me say, I can confidently say that we just aren't like Fort Mill or Rock Hill, and I don't think necessarily we want to be like them. We're different. I don't want to say that we're not excelling, but I don't want to disparage growth at all. I want to find that happy medium between keeping the quaintness and the history and the small town feel. I'm air quoting because that's what everybody likes to say. And merging it slightly with, some expansion and coming into our own as a new generation of Clover. I want to find that happy balance, and, might seem like a pipe dream and it might seem, silly, but there's got to be a medium. We can't stay in the past, but I don't want to fly so far into the future that it hurts us down the road and we've grown so fast that it gives us more problems than solutions, if that makes sense. I would say, yeah, we definitely, in the feedback that I get from people all the time, they don't want to be Rock Hill. They don't want to be Fort Mill. They don't want to be, Belmont. They want this small, tight-knit community to stay as small and tight as possible, but also be comfortable.
So one of the common things in the Clover community among residents and business owners is creating community. So in your own words, tell us your definition of creating community.
I would just go back to how you asked me about defining success of a community. It goes back to just being neighborly, being willing to be the village when people need a village, communicating, being accepting of where people are in their lives, being willing to reach out and do for others, because you just never know when you might need to be the person that needs help. There's community it's just love. Like, just love each other. Be together and realize that you are the bosses in this country. You are the boss. You're the taxpayer. You have the say. That's why the Constitution says we the people. And if we the people are constantly fighting with each other, then, all the big shots, they're going to do what they're going to do while you're distracted. And you just got to quit letting them distract you, because we have far more in common as humans and humanity than any of this stuff that's being thrown at us to try and divide us and make us mad at each other all the time. Like, we got to quit being so sensitive all the time. And I'm not saying that what, people are, hurtful and things like that, but it's all because we've allowed ourselves to be divided, instead of saying, hey, remember Red River, let's lock arms and knock over. Like, let's go. It's got to be about the people, and the people have to wake up and realize that they hold all the power. They do.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much for being our guest on the conversation. We appreciate you, and thank you for what you do for the Clover community.
Thank you so much. If anyone would like to reach out to me, my email is bfarr@cloversouthcarolina.org. Have my Facebook page, which you guys have tagged. I'm happy to talk with anyone if anyone has questions. And I'm just really grateful, Andrew, for the opportunity. And I really pray that this podcast blesses you guys, blesses the Lantern, and blesses our community.